The scent of lavender and sterile linens always clung to Alara's uniform, a quiet reminder of her calling. She was a nurse drawn to the profession by a deep well of empathy and a personal understanding of loss. Her days were spent in the hushed, often somber rooms of private homes, tending to those whose families needed round-the-clock care, those lingering in the liminal space between worlds. Her newest assignment took her to a sprawling old house on the edge of town, the Blackwood residence. It was a place that whispered of faded grandeur, the once loved gardens now overgrown, the windows seemingly holding their breath. Ilara felt the weight of sadness the moment she stepped through the large oak door. Mrs. Blackwood, a woman with eyes that held a profound, weary sorrow, greeted her with a polite, distant air. "You must be the new nurse, Ilara. Please come in," she said, her voice flat, devoid of warmth. Mr. Blackwood, a man whose face was etched with a similar, though more tightly controlled pain, offered a curt nod from his armchair in the vast, silent drawing room. They seemed like ghosts in their own home, haunted by an unseen presence. Mrs. Blackwood led Ilara upstairs, the grand staircase creaking softly beneath their feet. "Our son," she explained, her voice trembling slightly. "Leo. He's upstairs." They entered a large, sunlit room, oddly cheerful despite the circumstances. A young man lay in a hospital bed surrounded by humming machines and tangled tubes. He looked perhaps 17 or 18, his face pale and still, his dark hair a contrast against the crisp white pillow. "It's been 15 months, Mrs. Blackwood said, her voice breaking. "An accident, a terrible accident." She didn't elaborate, and Ilara didn't ask. The air in the room was thick with unspoken grief and regret. He's non-responsive. The doctors say, well, they don't offer much hope." Her gaze lingered on her son for a moment, filled with a painful longing, before she turned and left the room, leaving Ilara alone with Leo. Ilara adjusted her uniform, took a deep breath, and approached the bedside. She checked his vitals, adjusted his IV drip, her movements practiced and gentle. As she worked, she began to speak, her voice soft and steady. "Hello, Leo," she murmured, smoothing his blanket. "My name is Ilara, and I'll be looking after you now. It's a beautiful day outside. The sun is shining." Over the following days and weeks, Ilara established a routine. Beyond the necessary medical care, she brought life into the quiet room. She opened the curtains wide, letting the sunlight flood in. She brought in a small vase of fresh flowers from the neglected garden downstairs. She talked to Leo constantly, telling him about her day, reading him passages from books, sharing quiet stories. Sometimes she would sing softly, old folk songs her grandmother used to sing. She knew he couldn't respond, but she believed deep in her heart that he could hear, that the sound of a human voice, filled with warmth and connection, mattered. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood visited the room infrequently. When they did, it was brief, awkward. They would stand by the door, their faces averted, their pain a tangible barrier. They spoke to Leo in strained whispers, apologizing, expressing their heartbreak, but never staying long. It was clear they were consumed by their grief, perhaps by guilt, unable to bear the sight of the vibrant young man reduced to stillness. Ilara saw the fracture between them, the way they avoided each other's eyes, two souls adrift in a sea of shared sorrow. Ilara learned snippets of Leo's life from Mrs. Gable, the kind, elderly housekeeper who seemed to be the only other soul truly inhabiting the vast house. Leo was a talented musician, Mrs. Gable confided, played the piano beautifully. He loved to spend hours in the sunroom, filled with plants, where he would sketch in his notebook. He had a mischievous laugh, a kind heart, and a bright future before the accident stole it all away. Mrs. Gable's eyes would mist over as she spoke of him, of the joy he brought to the house, of the silence that had fallen since. Ilara spent extra time in Leo's room, sensing the profound loneliness that permeated not just him, but the entire house. She would tell him about the music she loved, describe the sunsets outside his window, try to fill the void with the simple presence of life and care. One afternoon, while tidying the room, Ilara noticed a framed photograph on the bedside table. It was Leo, younger, laughing, his arm around a dark-haired young woman, her face soft with affection. Mrs. Gable later told her it was Leo's girlfriend Clara. They had been inseparable, head over heels in love. Clara still sometimes sent cards filled with hopeful messages and memories, though she rarely visited anymore. The pain was too much, Mrs. Gable explained gently. A few weeks later, Ilara found an old, dusty sketch pad tucked away in a cabinet. She opened it carefully. The pages were filled with drawings, landscapes, portraits, whimsical doodles, all rendered with a confident, artistic hand. Many of the sketches were of Clara, capturing her smile, the way she tilted her head, the light in her eyes. Ilara showed the sketch pad to Mrs. Blackwood during one of her brief visits. "Look, Mrs. Blackwood," Ilara said softly. "Leo's drawings. He was so talented." Mrs. Blackwood took the sketch pad with trembling hands, flipping through the pages. A quiet sob escaped her. "His talent," she whispered, her voice full of heartbreak. "All that life, gone." She quickly closed the book and handed it back to Ilara, unable to bear the painful reminder of what they had lost. Ilara understood. Grief had built walls around the Blackwoods, isolating them from their son, from each other, from the painful reality of their lives. She knew she couldn't force them to confront their pain, but she felt a growing conviction that Leo perhaps needed to feel their presence, their love to anchor him. One morning, bolder than usual, Ilara found Mrs. Blackwood in the kitchen, staring blankly out the window. "Mrs. Blackwood," Ilara began hesitantly, "could I, could I talk to you about Leo? About visiting him?" Mrs. Blackwood turned, her eyes weary. "There's nothing to say, Ilara. He's not here, not really. But I think he is," Ilara said gently. "I believe he can feel things, hear things. Your presence, Mr. Blackwood's presence, it might make a difference. It's been 15 months, yes, but he's still your son. He needs you." Tears welled in Mrs. Blackwood's eyes. "You don't understand," she choked out. "Every time I see him, I see that day, the car, the sound, his stillness. It's my fault, Ilara. I was driving. If only, if only I'd seen the other car. If only I hadn't taken that turn." "Accidents happen, Mrs. Blackwood," Ilara said firmly but kindly. "Guilt is a heavy burden, but it won't help Leo. What he needs now is your love, Mr. Blackwood's love." She took Mrs. Blackwood's trembling hands in hers. "Go to him. Talk to him. Tell him about your day. Tell him you love him. Even if you don't think he hears, do it for yourself. Do it for him." Later that day, Ilara saw Mrs. Blackwood standing by Leo's bedside. She wasn't touching him, but she was there, simply present. The next day, Mr. Blackwood came up as well. He stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. It was a small step, but it was a step towards reconnecting. Ilara encouraged them gently. "Perhaps," she suggested to Mr. Blackwood one afternoon, "you could read to him. He loved books, didn't he?" Mr. Blackwood nodded, his throat tight, and the next day Ilara found him reading aloud from one of the adventure novels on the shelf. His voice was hesitant at first, then gained strength, filling the room with a familiar sound. She reminded Mrs. Blackwood about Leo's love for music. "He played the piano, didn't he? There's a piano downstairs. Maybe you could play for him?" Mrs. Blackwood flinched, the suggestion bringing back painful memories of Leo playing, filling the house with melody. But a few days later, Ilara heard the faint, hesitant notes of a piano drifting up the stairs. The music was slow, melancholic, but it was a sound of life returning to the silent house. Ilara continued her routine, talking, singing, keeping the room filled with warmth. One afternoon, she decided to bring out Leo's sketchpad again. She sat by his bedside, flipping through the pages, talking about the drawings. "Look, Leo," she murmured, showing him a sketch of Clara laughing. "She loves you very much. She still sends cards." As she spoke, she noticed something. A faint, almost imperceptible flicker beneath Leo's eyelids. Ilara held her breath, watching. It happened again. A tiny flutter. Her heart leaped. It was the first sign, the first movement she had ever seen. "Leo," she whispered, leaning closer. "Leo, can you hear me? If you can hear me, blink." Nothing. Had she imagined it? She waited, watching his face intently. She spoke again, her voice filled with a desperate hope. Leo, it's Alara. Your mother and father are here. They visit you. Your mother plays the piano for you. Your father reads to you. They miss you so much. We all miss you. Please, Leo, blink if you can hear me. She waited a long, agonizing moment. Then slowly, deliberately, Leo's right eyelid lifted, a fraction of an inch, and closed again. Ilara gasped, tears flooding her eyes. It wasn't a flicker. It was a conscious movement. "Oh, my word," she cried, leaping up. "Mrs. Blackwood! Mr. Blackwood! Come quickly, it's Leo!" He blinked. She ran to the top of the stairs, shouting for them. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood came running, their faces a mixture of alarm and bewilderment. "What is it, Ilara? What's happened?" Mr. Blackwood asked, his voice tense. "He blinked," Ilara exclaimed, her voice trembling with excitement. "He responded. I asked him to blink if he could hear me, and he blinked." They rushed into the room, their eyes fixed on their son. Ilara knelt by the bed. "Leo," she said again, her voice full of encouragement. "Leo, can you hear Mommy and Daddy? Blink for them, darling. Just one little blink." They watched breathless. After a tense moment, his eyelid lifted again, a slow, deliberate blink. Mrs. Blackwood cried out, a sound of raw, joyful disbelief. She stumbled forward, reaching for her son's hand. Mr. Blackwood sank into the chair beside the bed, his face buried in his hands, his body shaking with silent sobs. "He's here," Mrs. Blackwood whispered, stroking Leo's cheek, tears streaming down her face. "He's here, James. He heard us." It was a turning point. A miracle, they called it. The medical team, initially skeptical, performed new tests. To their astonishment, they found subtle changes, signs of neurological activity they had previously missed or dismissed. Leo's condition, while still serious, wasn't as irreversible as they had believed. There was a chance. A long, uncertain road, but a chance nonetheless. Hope, a fragile, precious thing, returned to the Blackwood Manor. It didn't erase the pain, but it provided a light in the darkness. The atmosphere in the house transformed. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood were constantly by Leo's side now, talking to him, holding his hand, their faces etched with newfound determination. The guilt was still there, but it was now intertwined with hope, fueling their resolve. Their bond, shattered by grief, began to mend, slowly, tenderly, as they focused on their shared purpose, helping their son. Ilara continued to care for Leo, her heart full of gratitude and quiet joy. She witnessed the small, miraculous improvements each day, a finger twitch, a slight head movement, the moments when his eyes seemed to track their movements, filled with a faint, confused light. She encouraged the Blackwoods, celebrated each tiny victory, reminded them of how far they had come. One sunny afternoon, while Ilara was helping Leo with some gentle physical therapy in the sunroom, a young woman arrived. It was Clara. She looked nervous, hesitant, holding a small bouquet of flowers. Ilara had called her cautiously, sharing the news of Leo's progress, sensing that this connection was vital. Clara entered the sunroom, her eyes widening as she saw Leo. He was propped up in a special chair, looking frail but undeniably present. "Leo," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Leo's eyes, though still unfocused, seemed to turn towards the sound of her voice. Ilara stepped back, giving them space. Clara approached the chair slowly, tears streaming down her face. She knelt beside him, taking his hand in hers. "Oh, Leo," she sobbed. "I'm here, my love. I'm here." As Clara spoke to him, her voice soft and loving, Ilara saw it, the faintest trace of a smile on Leo's lips, a genuine, though fleeting, smile. Clara buried her face in his hand, weeping, not just with sorrow, but with relief, with a profound, heartbroken joy. Ilara knew then that her time with the Blackwoods was drawing to a close. Leo would need specialized rehabilitation, care that went beyond her role as a private nurse. She had helped guide them through the darkest part of their journey, helping them find their way back to each other and back to their son. Her purpose here was fulfilled. A few weeks later, Leo was strong enough to be transferred to a rehabilitation center specializing in brain injuries. The day he left the manor was emotional. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood were filled with cautious optimism. their hands clasped tightly together, their eyes rarely leaving their son. Clara was there too, her hand resting gently on Leo's arm as he was wheeled out. Mrs. Blackwood hugged Alara tightly, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Alara," she whispered. "You brought him back to us. You brought us back to us." Mr. Blackwood, his voice thick with emotion, squeezed her hand. "We are eternally grateful, Alara. You are truly one of God's angels." Alara's own eyes were misty. "He is a remarkable young man, Mr. Blackwood, and you are a strong family. The road ahead will be challenging, but you have each other now, and you have hope." She watched as the ambulance pulled away, carrying Leo toward the next chapter of his journey. She felt a profound sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction that warmed her from the inside out. Her work was often difficult, emotionally draining, but moments like these, witnessing the power of love and hope rekindled, made it all worthwhile. Alara left the Blackwood Manor that day, the scent of lavender and sterile linen still clinging to her uniform, but now mingled with the faint, lingering scent of hope and the memory of a smile. She knew there would be other silent rooms, other families lost in darkness, needing a gentle hand to guide them back to the light. And she was ready. Carrying the Blackwood story in her heart, a testament to the quiet miracles that can happen when love refuses to give up, when hope, like a single, determined blink, pierces through the deepest night.